Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org.
I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville. We're going to hear the remarkable story of Fred Bailey this hour, and most likely we'll leave with a new appreciation for hard work and determination. This is not the first time, though, WPLN has interviewed Fred Bailey. I was introduced to him in 2017 through our podcast project called Versify, where poets would interview people around the community and write a poem about their discussion right there on the spot. So today, we'll reverse things and hear that poem first before we unpack the details of his life story. Here's Fred Bailey's life in verse as written by poet Saran Thompson.
What do you see when you look fear in the face? How do you navigate life when your compass has been on mute since exiting the womb and your shoulders are bruised from bumping into people and blindly breaking the rules? How do you fight a formidable foe labeled as a father when you can't see the liquid fire ingested and the rage crawling out of his pores with every sip? Easy. Speak the truth and let it reverberate back to you. After all, fear is the greatest catalyst for growth. It fosters intense moments of love and radiates hope. Rain, clouds, clear sky, Fred Bailey is a star. This sun shines over tilled farmland, bringing light and warmth to inner darkness. His hard work ethic, wrapped in respect, stitched together with his father's words like fabric. His father said, "You are black, blind, and poor. To succeed in this time, scratch that, to survive, you need to do two things. You have to think a lot for yourself and work like hell. And if you can get an education, you can survive being black and blind." Mr. Fred Bailey, his heart a volcano in his community, looks like a mountain but holds so much more. Overflowing with molten passion, burning away the wool pulled over the youth's eyes, those lies are flimsy, useless, fickle shields. Those lies are crutches. They can hold you back more than they hold you up. Race, ethnicity, money, religion, disabilities are nothing more than gardening tools of division. Let those lies burn in the lava of truth. Make smoke signals that once read SOS to now say hard work paves the way to success. Let the ashes of lies fall to the ground like fertilizer and watch life sprout when you plant seeds of truth. Fred Bailey's heart is a volcano, erupting molten passion, creating beautiful islands for children to stand on and wrestle these issues. Mr. Bailey, you would think he's wrestling with blindness and blackness, but he's long pinned those sorry excuses into submission. Now that is 20/20 vision.
And that is poet Saran Thompson reading his piece about the life of Fred Bailey, our guest this hour. Fred Bailey, welcome to This Is Nashville.
Thank you, Blake. Glad to be here.
Well, I'm sitting here with a copy of your book, Nowhere Near the Bottom, sitting in front of me, and really enjoyed getting to know more of the details of your life. What inspired you to put it down on paper? Because I was doing some of the timing, and the first time we talked to you, obviously you had all these stories of your life kind of pent up. I wonder what made you decide a few years later to put them between two covers and call it a book.
It's interesting. When I started Children Are People, the after-school program in Gallatin, man, I lived in Hendersonville, and the organization was in Gallatin. And I took a cab from Hendersonville to Gallatin every day. Man, it was about to break me.
I guess so, yeah.
Gosh, it was a lot of money. Well, there was a guy that worked in one of the offices in the building that we're in, and he used to hear me back there working with the kids. And he used to come back and just listen. And one day he approached me. He said, "I want you to come and talk to my church and tell my church what you do." And I did that one Sunday. And each one of those guys and ladies in that church, they said, "Well, you're not taking a cab anymore. We're going to take turns taking you to work and picking you up." And as we would go to my work, they would talk to me about my philosophy, why am I doing what I'm doing. And I told them I didn't have the right not to. and I told them that I only wanted the young people, I only wanted the kids that society was making victims out of, because these kids are the ones that's got to understand life is your real boss, or will be your real boss at some point. When your mother and father is no longer around, your teachers are no longer around, your preacher, whatever, life will be your real boss, and it does not take into consideration any of your circumstances. So they said, you got to put the way you think down in a book. And I never thought no more about it, man. And different ones would drive me. But Susan Newell, she was one of the volunteers, and she was determined, we're going to put this down in writing.
So you're saying it came from spending so much time with each of these members of this church who were driving you to your nonprofit you started from Hendersonville, where you live, to Gallatin, where Children Are People is.
Exactly.
And they hear all these stories and say, have you written these things down? You're like, nah.
No. You know, because I never intended to talk about me. I didn't think my life was noteworthy.
Well, I think listeners are going to say otherwise by the time we get to the end of this episode. So let's kind of step back just to understand, because I'll tell you, reading about your upbringing in Sumner County, it sounds like it was 200 years ago. You write about your being so poor that your mother would go work for families around Gallatin for basically the payment was leftover food.
In a lot of cases.
And sometimes she would come home without it, but she'd go back to work the next day just because they needed it. Yeah. Talk to me about when you say growing up poor, what that really looked like in the 1950s.
Well, you got to think, we sharecropped on this man's farm, Billy Donahoe. We sharecropped on his farm. My daddy was supposed to raise the tobacco, take care of the animals, and that kind of stuff. But my daddy was an alcoholic. So if Billy Donahoe shared anything with him, it never got carried over to the family. So we were always poor. We were always hungry. My mama used to work in these people's houses. And so, like I said, sometimes her payment was the leftover food to feed us. We went days when there was nothing to eat. We just had to fend for ourselves. One good thing about where we lived, during the right seasons, there were always plum trees, blackberry vines, hickory nuts, walnuts. Man, we just made a way.
You foraged in Sumner County to survive.
We did. And man, my daddy, if you can think of an alcoholic with some pride, he would never, ever allow anything government to come in the house. Nothing. If you didn't earn it, you better not come in that house with it. Now you think I'm the 10th of 15 kids. 15. And so he wouldn't allow anything, and we were never allowed to take anything from anybody. If somebody offered us some food and we could have been starving to death, we were not allowed to take it. We would say thank you, no thank you, and go on about our business. My brother and I, he used to get on one side of 109, and I used to get on the other side. And we used to, now he probably could see, but I used to have to kind of kick around with my feet. We were looking for these bottles, because back in the day, you turn these bottles in, there was a deposit on them, like a nickel or something like that. I can't remember, but you could get a deposit. And that's how we ate some days, by just doing that.
You'd pick up bottles on the roadside, go turn them in, and get a nickel for each one.
Get a nickel for every bottle. And then you could get a bag of beans, because things were cheap back then. But you just money was hard to come by. We was back up in those woods. We didn't hardly go to school a whole lot, because we lived about a mile, 2 miles to where you had to go to catch the bus, and we never had good clothes. We got made fun of. Unmercifully.
Well, you talked about having to stand in the cafeteria along the walls and watch everybody eat their lunch. I can't imagine you really want to go in for that punishment every day.
Well, you didn't, and I'm not sure why they wasn't going to let you stay in the classroom by yourself, because we didn't have lunch half the time. And I don't know if this was free lunch time or not, but even if there was free lunch, we would have been too embarrassed to take it.
Wow.
Wow. That's the kind of way we were brought up.
Well, I think we're catching the vibe.
Yeah.
If you're just joining us, I'm Blake Farmer. This is Nashville. Our guest this hour is Fred Bailey, the pride of Sumner County. We're getting to know him. I want to talk about the discovery that you are blind.
Oh, God.
I mean, it sounds like a punchline, this story of you basically getting in trouble in school, and they say, you you better be blind, and you're like, I guess maybe I am. Like, how did you really not know that you were blind?
Because my daddy, nor my mother, nor my brothers and sisters ever mentioned that word. They never mentioned it.
Did they
Now,
have a hunch that you couldn't see?
Well, I didn't know what to call it.
Right.
Because I knew I think we had about 2 or 3 steps coming off the porch in the house we lived on. And my brothers and sisters at night, they could just run down the steps and go on. I kind of had to come off the porch and kind of feel around with my foot to find the steps. Uh-huh. Then I could catch up with them by their voices. So I learned to adapt and adjust very, very, as soon as I could walk. I learned to adapt and adjust. And my daddy never mentioned you're being blind, you're being special. My mama never said anything. And my brothers and sisters probably just didn't know. We wasn't the brightest bunch of kids. They probably just didn't know. When I ran into stuff, I thought everybody was doing that. I did. I thought
guess if there are 15 kids around, you maybe don't pay attention to them as well. And the disease was degenerative, correct? I mean, you maybe had some vision early on.
No, I could see shapes early on. I couldn't make out anybody. Couldn't tell enough about anybody to know who they were. And just like I do today, I still go by voices even now. When it took me down, when I ran into this teacher, and this teacher said, boy, you got to think about it. This is 1962, 63. Man, those teachers would literally beat you to death back then. Some of them had a paddle and a strap, and I think they were using both of them at the same time sometimes. But anyway, I was going to my classroom, and Miss Hayes was coming out of her room just as soon as I got there. Even at her door, man, she was coming out, and I just ran into her. And this woman had me in the collar, and she said, boy, you either about to be blind or else. First time I ever heard that. She took me up to the office, and J.B. Hall was the principal, and we were all scared of him too. Man, what's wrong with you, boy? And man, I'm not saying anything. I'm only like 9.
Is this a segregated school? It's
an
integrated school.
Yeah, it's segregated. Yeah,
okay.
It's segregated. Union Elementary. Anyway, they took me to a doctor in Nashville. And I remember Dr. Forrester. And I remember him shuffling his papers and kind of grunting to himself. He finally put them down. He said, He said, son, this is where he put it. Son, you got a problem that we're just now learning about. You got retinitis pigmentosa. And I was dumb as a rock back then. The biggest word I could spell was tobacco, because that's just what we dealt with. But retinitis pigmentosa, I didn't hear blind in that. And now I'm scared to death because of what Ms. Hayes said. And we didn't question adults when I was coming up. Whatever an adult said was law. But man, I'm not hearing blind in this retinitis pigmentosa. So I finally got the courage. I said, well, sir, does that mean that I'm blind? Then he hesitated. I guess he was trying to figure out, how do I tell this kid, yeah, you're blind and there's no hope? He finally said, son, you're blind. For all practical purposes, you're blind, and you will be blind for the rest of your life. There's no cure for this. I said, thank God. Now, I know he thought, he's not only blind, he's crazy. But I've been blind for like 9 or 10 years and didn't even know it. And it didn't hurt. But if I'd have gone back and told Miss Hayes I wasn't blind, that woman was going to beat me to death. And when I got back to school, she was waiting on me. And she said, what's wrong with you, boy? I said, they told me I was blind today. And she spun on her heels and went back to her classroom. And that was the end of that. But my life took off when I went home and told my father. That's when my life really took off.
And is that when he had this moment where he gave you the lecture?
Yeah. He was always on the couch. My father didn't work because he was always too intoxicated. And I mean, normally we didn't engage him. We were real afraid of him. We were extremely afraid of him. He was extremely volatile. So we used to stay out in the woods and just wait till he went to bed. Then we eased in the house. But this time, man, I just learned something new. You would have thought I learned something great, you know. So when I said, hey, Dad, they told me I was blind today. And as soon as he started to get up off the couch, I figured I made a mistake. His patented phrase was, let's get a good understanding. so it won't be any mistakes. That usually means you're going to get hurt.
Oh.
So he just kind of pushed me against the wall, kind of. He said, okay, so you're black, you're blind, and you're poor. You only got 2 ways out of this. Think a lot of yourself first and work like hell. He said, now, if you're able to get an education along with that, you will know how to handle the blackness and the blindness. And Blake, like I said, I was about 9, and I'm 72 now. I haven't looked back since.
Well, it strikes me that this launching pad lecture comes from someone who you did not have a warm relationship with at all, and yet it catapulted you to do all that you've done in the last 60 years.
You know, I don't think he knew what he was saying. I really don't. I don't even think he knew what he was doing. But the way it affected me was, your blindness and your blackness means nothing. You go on and carry on just like you've been carrying on. Do your chores, do what you're supposed to do. I guess I was about us. And sophomore, let me tell you how I got to the School for the Blind. Evidently, this doctor turned my name into somewhere. And he must have turned it into the Tennessee School for the Blind because some lady found me back up in those sticks. And she said, we got a school for people like you. And it was the Tennessee School for the Blind. And I went there in 1965. I guess I was about a sophomore or junior in school before I realized what my daddy had done for me. And what my daddy had done for me was set me up not to go through this life as a blind or a black man. He made me go through this life as Fred Bailey. And that's what he did. And to me, for America to be at its best, we got to get out of this color thing. We got to get out of this Democratic or Republican thing and get into whom you were meant to be. That's what we got to get to.
Well, we're going to get to that. We need to take our first break. We are joined by Fred Bailey, founder of a couple of nonprofits who help at-risk youth here in Nashville, and obviously unbelievable tale, life story that we're getting this hour. So thank you for tuning in this hour. This is Nashville. Stay with us.
Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP, and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org. Funding for This Is Nashville comes from Burr and Foreman Law Firm, serving clients with transactional, litigation, and regulatory needs. Discovering how each client defines a win and working with them every step of the way to achieve it. Burr.com.
I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville. We are joined by Fred Bailey this hour, getting to know his story of growing up, as his father put it, black, blind, and poor in Sumner County, and overcoming that, I wouldn't call them odds, overcoming all these setbacks and making a life and having so much wisdom to share at this point. Fred Bailey, thank you for being with us today.
Oh, man, I'm proud to be here.
Well, where we left off was you figuring out that you were blind, and that triggered you ending up at the Tennessee School for the Blind. What was it like to be somewhere that knew how to deal with you?
Well, my father had set the foundation for me to be successful. He had set my foundation based on respect and work ethic. One thing about him, you were always going to be, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir. And as soon as you start to walk, you started to work, whatever that looked like. If picking up kindling for starting fire, you picked up your little pieces of wood. And so I had the foundation of getting my life and getting this blackness and this blindness to be null and void. I had the foundations of it. When I got to the School for the Blind, then I got the educational piece. And once I got the educational piece, again, I was no longer black or blind. I was just Fred Bailey.
Yeah.
And that's what the School for the Blind did for me. Those people out there. I remember Dr. Coker. He was the principal out there. And I remember upon my graduation, the ceremony went something like this. He said, I remember he said something to the fact, this diploma certifies that Fred Bailey has met all of the requirements as set forth by the state of Tennessee, or something like that. But the Cokers and the Crockett's and the Ewings and the Hastings and the Armses, those teachers knew that life would exact and demand much more than the state of Tennessee ever would or ever could. So that school got us ready for life.
Yeah.
That's what they did. They got us ready for our real boss, and that's life.
Wow. Well, you get out of school, and I think you're sort of tired of school, and so you get to work, but then also realize you probably do need to get a little more schooling. What did that look like, those early days after being, graduating from School for the Blind that gave you this big lift?
Well, I hated school. I never have liked it because of, I guess, my elementary days, you're getting picked on and so forth. But I never really liked school. So I went to work right after high school, and I said, shoot, and I went to work for the General Electric, matter of fact. Well, I started out at Tennessee Parts Warehouse, then got a job at General Electric. And shoot, General Electric paid good money. I said, well,
I was going to say General Electric in those days, that was the place to work, right?
Yeah, and I said, this is it. Forget this.
You're going to be a company man.
Exactly. But then General Electric started laying off. The Japanese were coming in and giving them some stiff competition.
Well, what kind of projects were you working on? Was this the early days of personal computing?
No. Shoot, no. I never even saw a computer back then. This was the Commercial Industrial Motor Division of General Electric. And so you ran a lot of punch press machines and stuff like that.
Okay.
But when they started laying off, I said, uh-oh. I think I'm going to have more schooling. I'm going to have a degree. So I went to Tennessee State while I was still working at GE. So I took a few hours here, a few hours there, finally got out of Tennessee State. But I got into real estate, and I majored in political science, pre-law.
Okay.
And I was going to go into government, but I found out I couldn't lie and grin at the same time. then I decided I'm going to go on to law school, but then I said everybody's guilty. So I went into coaching and real estate.
Yeah. Well, so real estate, you start, I guess you'd saved up some money having this good job at General Electric.
Right.
So you start buying these houses for almost nothing that are overrun.
Exactly.
How does a blind man do that on his own, buying houses, fixing them up, renting them out?
What I couldn't do myself, I hired somebody to do. But a lot of things, like there was windows that needed to be scraped and painted and all of that stuff. I could scrape them and make sure they were smooth, but somebody else did the painting and all of that. You'd be surprised how much you can see with your hands.
Yeah.
And that's how kind of way we
I guess you could patch a drywall. You know it's smooth with your hands.
I had a sighted guy. I had a drywall man. And I always checked over their stuff. And
so you just run your hands along the whole wall?
Yeah. So see, I said, well, I called him back over. I said, come here for a minute. I said, what do you see on this wall? What do you mean? It looks good. I said, I'm surprised you don't get seasick with all the waves in here. He said, he looked at it, he got down. He said, I didn't see that, but I could feel it.
Yeah, well, you probably wasn't feeling it. There's that.
Exactly. So that's kind of how I did it.
So when you're at school, I think you're standing, waiting for a bus or something, and a pretty young woman comes up named Ramona.
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah, well, first of all, she had no clue I was blind. She said, I'm looking for rooms so-and-so, so-and-so. Well, I knew where the room was because I had a class right next to it. So I took her to the classroom, and I'm not, to this day, I'm not sure she believed I'm blind.
Well, okay, so not to fast forward too much, but like you all end up going out on a date. I guess she picks you up, and y'all are having dinner, and then you start talking about the Tennessee School for the Blind. She's like, what?
Yeah. She said, what? She said, you taught there? I said, no, I went there. She said, it's for blind people, right? I said, yeah. She said, but you're not blind. I said, but I am. She said, well, how come I can't tell? I said, I don't know. I hadn't hit anything yet. So we went on like that for a minute. It was fun.
Wow.
I mean, I have fun. I have a lot of fun with it. I got people come in my office now. Mr. Bailey, will you look this over and see if it's okay? I said, yeah, it looks fine to me. And somebody will be standing there. You don't know he's blind?
How remarkable. Well, so, but I do want to stop here with Ramona. I mean, it sounds like you think the world of her, very smart, bright, but you were very worried about what her family might think. That is she going to marry a blind man?
Well, I did. I just wondered, how would they take this? And they took it just fine. Her mother told me, she said, I am so glad my daughter found such a great man like yourself. And that was one of the biggest honors anybody could have given me. And that's almost, we've been married 50 years now.
Wow. I'm Blake Farmer. This is Nashville. If you're just joining us, we're spending the hour with Fred Bailey, the pride of Sumner County, as I kind of feel like I need to keep saying. He's the grew up in Gallatin area, ended up at Tennessee School for the Blind. Once he figured out that he was blind, went on to work for General Electric, started his own little real estate company, and then importantly, started two nonprofits, one in Nashville, one in Gallatin, to help at-risk youth. And I want to get to those that time. When did you decide, you know what, I need to start something that's going to kind of instill these values that I feel like are lacking? What inspired you to do that?
One day I was on my way. I worked the second shift at GE from 4 to 12:30. And one day I was getting ready to go to work. I had the TV on. And there was a panel. They had a panel. I forgot what the show was, but there was a panel, and I remember Ted Kennedy, Jesse Jackson. It was several politicians on there. And I remember the question was, why aren't poor people or disadvantaged people, why aren't they doing better after all of the money that's being spent on programs to help them?
Would this be in the era where there were a lot of questions about, I mean, when the title welfare queen was really floating around and we were really drilling down on, should we be funneling this much money in this way? Okay.
It was in that time frame. And I remember the excuses. Well, they're not doing well because of poor neighborhoods, absentee fathers, and bad schools, racism, and all of this kind of stuff. And I'm sitting here listening to this, and I'm saying, no. All of those things may exist, but those things should be things that prepare you, not define you. Mm. So I said to myself, when I get to where I don't have to 9 to 5 it, I'm going to take young people and show them, in order to be a citizen in America, this is what you got to equip yourself with. Mm. This is what you got to do. And so I didn't have a place to start Children Are People. I was looking everywhere, and we finally found a room down at the Public Housing Authority.
In Gallatin.
In Gallatin. We used their community room. And the first thing I wanted to see from these kids, because it would tell me a lot, I want to see their most recent report card, because it tells me a lot. And when I got their report card, most of those kids almost had straight D's and F's, but they were passing. I told my staff and volunteers, I said, it's going to be easy to get them to 4.0s and 3.78s and all of that. That's going to be easy because there's nothing wrong with their brains. I can tell you that. It is total apathy and lethargy, and no one expects them to do better. But here, we're going to expect them to do better, and we're going to push it. So I remember my volunteers. I watched my volunteers and staff I watched them about 30 days. And then when we had our staff and volunteers meeting, man, they just throw up their hands and say, Mr. Bailey, these kids don't want anything. You can't do anything with them. We're trying to love on them. We're trying to nurture them, and we're trying to be, but they just don't want it. I said, well, it's not the kids, it's you. Huh? What do you mean? I said, you can't nurture these kids right now. You got to train them. Well, Mr. Bailey, you train animals. How are they acting? Well, like animals. Then you got to think how you train. Think how you train. And once you can train them, now you can get to nurturing.
Oh, hold on one sec. Was that your phone that was, I just heard it tells you what time it is?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, start back with the train thing.
Yeah. You got to train them first. Then you can get to nurturing them. Now, you got to treat these kids rough. Not mean, but you got to be rough until you get their attention.
I imagine that was not a popular idea, that people want to be caring and loving, and these kids are not getting a lot of that at home,
they're not getting it at home. That's why they don't understand it. That's why you gotta give them the same thing they're getting at home, but in a different manner. And so once they got them to do that, almost the next grading period, you saw the dignity and the pride coming back in, because they were running in the door. Mr. Bailey, look at my progress report. I said, yeah, baby, it's great. They said, now we're talking. That's what I used to say. I mean, I couldn't even see it. It might not be nothing on the paper, But what I saw was the dignity and pride was back. And once we got that set, those kids are doctors now. We graduated out of there. They're doctors. They're in law school. They're emergency nurses, operating room nurses. Man, they're everywhere, because you got to take kids like I deal with and be rough at the outset, and then you can get to nurturing.
Well, you write something, I'm going to read from your book here. Yeah. It says, being hungry is not the worst thing that can happen to you. I believe that when you let somebody do more for you than you are willing to do for yourself, that's the worst thing that can happen to you. I don't know that that's a real popular idea right now.
There's a whole lot of things that's not popular, but the human condition requires, now, at least the way I view it, the human condition requires you to go the nth mile. If you can't get any further than that, I can assure you there will always be some help to help you get the next inch or two. But for you to sit around and wait for somebody to do something for you, you basically have had it. If I draw the line at being lazy. Now, you can be dumb as a rock. You might not even know how to write your name. But if you're not lazy, you're still going to make it. Lazy. I think what I'm seeing in America right now, we don't know what respect is, and we are extremely lazy. Now, everybody's talking about the immigrants, and we're rounding them up and sending them here, sending them there. But we really don't have an immigrant problem. We have a lazy problem, because when people, I used to hear, they're over here and they're taking our jobs. Well, they couldn't take your job if you own it. These people. Yeah, I have no problem getting rid of criminals. I got a few in America I want you to send somewhere. Not a problem. But the hardworking people, I put all kind of value in work.
I know. You even say that when you look back at the founding of our country, that it's not, that it's not, religion.
Exactly.
It's not spiritual or religious.
Exactly.
They were hard workers.
Hard workers. They when you think about these pioneers, they got to cut out the forest just to make roads, just to a walking path. They got to take these same trees that they cut down and make their cabins out of. They gotta go around hunting for food, come back and cook it, and all of this and all of that. That's hard work. I tell everybody, you won't hear me talk about God that much, because the God that takes care of me tells me, as long as you will work and as long as you will give back, you're okay with me. I'm gonna take care of you. And I think we talk so much about God that we don't even know what that concept is about, because the most direct path to God, as far as I'm concerned, is through service. And we don't want to do that. We're way too selfish in this country, and that makes us lazy. That makes us apathetic. The human condition in America has got to get itself together.
Well, you've opened a can of worms here, and don't worry, we're not going to close it just yet, but we do need to take one last break. My guest this hour is Fred Bailey, the founder of two nonprofits, Children Are People and the McGimsey Center in Nashville, helping at-risk youth. We're talking about his life, about that work, and we're loving it. Stay with us. This is Nashville.
Funding for This is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org.
I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville. Our guest this hour is Fred Bailey, the founder of two nonprofits helping at-risk youth in Gallatin and in Nashville. We're talking about his life, his work, and some of the wisdom he's gathered in his 70-plus years on this planet, working hard with a lot of things stacked against him. So we left off with this point about what you see America needing. Because even what you're saying is probably making our listeners a little uncomfortable, that this idea that people have to work. I think if you say life is about working hard, I think people say, no, we shouldn't be having to work so hard.
Yeah, because what satisfies the human condition is work. And if the work is too easy, if you don't ever have a struggle of any type, if life is too easy, then your mind takes over and gives you a false sense of a thing. I tell people right now, you got to get out of your mind, and that doesn't mean. So a lot of times they'll say, "You mean you want me to go crazy?" No, your mind is controlling you, and your mind unharnessed will take you somewhere you don't want to go, whether you're rich, poor, whatever. So what I'm telling everybody is that you need to work hard, and the work that you need to be doing is to make this country as great as you can make it. Now, I'm never going to leave America. America is my country. I'm not an African American. I am an American. I was born here in 1953. If that doesn't make me naturalized, I'll never be. But I will never allow you to call me anything but Fred Bailey, and I am an American. And my work is to make this country the best that I can make it. And that means individual by individual, because the country basically are the people that's in it. We got 330-some million people in this country. Now, the majority of us are trying to do right by have a nice home, do right by our kids, and so forth and so on. There's a few of us that think that somebody owes us something, and the government is promoting that a lot. the government is telling you, let me take care of you. Well, I looked up the Greek word for government one time. And the Greek word for government is mind control. People, quit letting people control you by giving you crumbs. By the time I got to school for the blind, I understood exactly what my daddy meant by never ever be beholden. That was their favorite word. Don't be beholden. Don't let anybody give you something that you don't give something back in return, because the universe requires a balance.
But the Tennessee School for the Blind, that's the government. That is the Tennessee state government funding a special institution to help people like you. I mean, the government is in the helping business.
No, the government is really not, because now, in this case, education has always been the key. Now, I'm not sure. When I'm looking at what they're doing to schools now, I'm not sure the government actually want its citizenry educated. I think they want its citizenry more indoctrinated.
Well, can I ask you this?
Yeah.
All that you're talking about makes it very difficult for me to think about where you might sit politically, if that even matters. Do you think of yourself as a political person, whether it's left, right, center? Where are you?
I'm an American. And I'm an American. I think we need to do a lot less white supremacy and Black Lives Mattering and Democraticing and Republicaning, and let's do more Americaning.
Yeah.
Now that's where I am. If you don't like America, I'm okay with it. I mean, I'm gonna pass the hat around, and I'm gonna put the first money in to get you a ticket out of here.
I see. You're saying if you really want to rag on America, that's okay. You don't have to be part of this.
You don't have to be part of it. All I'm saying is, let me tell you something. America has its problems. It does. But let me tell you, with a modicum of initiative, where can a blind Black man go from a farm to a Hall of Fame? Only in America. And I just got inducted into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Well, we've sort of skipped over your entire wrestling career that you started at Tennessee School for the Blind and then had a coaching career after that. But yes, Hall of Fame, I did not know.
So, but I'm just saying, America has this problem. But let me tell you guys, and the teachers at the school, those people were great. They were making America great. Way before it became a bumper sticker or a slogan.
Who's the they? Who are you talking about?
I'm talking about the teachers at the School for the Blind. The Cokers, the Ewings, the Hastings, the Armses, the Alexanders. I mean, man, they knew what they were doing. You forgot about being blind when you was out there.
Wow.
You didn't know you were.
Let me ask you this: we haven't talked about your own children. You had a son. And then you had 3 kids who kind of adopted you as parents, right?
Exactly.
And I believe that several of them are in Chicago, maybe working in schooling.
They're back here now.
They're back here.
They're back here now. One of them is a therapist, and one of them is a principal up in the prison system. He's a principal in there. They got a school in there, and he's a principal in there.
So have they taken this same initiative to heart?
Yes. Now, one of my sons is an attorney, and I knew he was going to be an attorney because I couldn't shut him up. So he's an attorney, and so they all are doing well. They believe in hard work. They believe don't give me anything. I'll get it. And that's what I told them.
Do you think this mindset works for everyone? I feel like I can go on this ride with you and feel like, yeah, hard work. But I think it could. I don't know. Are there some personalities that this is not going to be their path?
Look, if you're lazy, and now there may be. I can't fly a plane, so I'm not going to try it. I know I probably can't operate heavy duty equipment, but there's something I can do. Now,
we'll talk about that sort of like finding the thing that you are good at and brings you life and energy. Everybody's got that, right?
Everybody's got that. And nobody owes you. See, America, if you think America owes you something just by you being born, you're wrong. The human condition requires you to go get it. It should not be handed to you, because I know a bunch of rich kids. Man, they need the same training I would give the kids that we would say was below the poverty line.
Yeah.
Because it's all about character. Now, I don't tell you that life is easy. This is a capitalistic democratic society. It can be hard to find your way in it, but you will not find your way if you're lazy. If you think somebody owes you something, if you think you do something because I'm this or that.
How do you keep your anti-laziness going? I mean, you're showing up here. You're wearing freaking cufflinks. Today. You don't have to do that. Dress in a suit. That's you've sort of done your thing. But I feel like you want to exude this energy, and you do. But surely there are times when you don't want to.
No. I'm hyped up all the time. All the time.
You sleep in the suit.
Yeah, I very seldom sleep. I'm averaging.
Really? You're
I'm
not
averaging 2 or 3 hours.
You're kidding.
No, I go to bed about I would say 11:30. I'm up at 4.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not sleep all the time because my mind is always racing. What can Fred Bailey do to make America the greatest country on the face of this earth? Of this 7 or 8 billion people on this planet, how can I make America stand out as the country that everybody wants to go to?
Well, what in this current moment, as we near the end of our time together, beyond what we've discussed, what is it that America needs? What is coming to you in these tossing and turning moments in the middle of the night?
If what's coming to me is the 330 million people. Number one, you need to understand you're being controlled by 535 people.
Congress.
Yes. Now, 335 people controlling 330 million like you're a bunch of snotty-nosed kids. I think the 330 million people need to understand you may be white, you may be Indian, you may be African, you may be black, or whatever. We're all in the same boat.
Yeah.
And there's need to be some unity amongst us all. I believe I'm trying to put the e pluribus unum in America. Out of the many comes one. That's really what I want.
Yeah, I even when you said the 535 referring to Congress, my mind jumped to, is it really that, or is it really the two, which is the two parties, that you sort of have to either be over here or over there? And it sounds like you're saying the 330 million have a lot more in common than things to fight about.
We can make Washington do what it's supposed to do if we could come together. But what I think we're at odds. The blacks think the whites don't like them. The whites think the blacks are this or that. The Indians and we all are in our little groups, in our little cliques. Somehow, some way, we have got to find out that we really are America. Not that 535 people. We are really America. And once we understand that, it's incumbent upon all of us 330 million, to come together to make this country great and to be there for one another, to literally have each other's back.
Well, we're going to just leave it right there. Fred Bailey, founder of the Children Are People and McGimpsey Center in Nashville, Children Are People in Gallatin, who's lived an unbelievable life and is still turning heads with all that he's had to say this hour. Thank you for joining us.
More than happy to be here, Blake. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in this hour. This is Nashville is a production of Nashville Public Radio. Our board operator is Liv Lombardi. Our managing editor is Tasha A.F. Limley. The masterminds behind that theme music you hear are LaRange and Namir Blade. Listen back at thisisnashville.org, or you can listen. This is a podcast, so wherever you get good podcasts, or you can just ask your smart speaker to play the latest episode of This is Nashville. The conversation does not have to end here. You can comment, tell us what you want to hear on the show by leaving us a message at 615-751-2500. You can also find us on the socials at This is Nashville. This is Nashville. I'm Blake Farmer. Go in peace.